Welcome to the Bright Ideas Podcast.
So I've been in sales all my life. Back in the day, I used to make cold calls. I used to make so many of them. Actually, I got written up in James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, as the paperclip strategy guy, because I would take 2 baby jars and I'd move 120 paper clips every time I dialed the phone. Things have evolved a lot since those days because you didn't have voicemail back then and you didn't have electronic answering service. I mean, it was really fairly easy if you were willing to put in the elbow grease to get a number of people on the phone every day and book appointments and go out and do your stuff. Those days are long gone. And now we've got electronics and social media and email and a lot of noise. So what other ways, or I guess the question is it's got a lot more difficult, especially in the last few years. What do you think the main reasons for that are? And then we're going to talk about how to solve those problems.
Yeah, well, there's more companies, selling than ever before, and that keeps growing. I think we've created a lot of channels now for people to sell on, so it's no longer just phone and face to face, but you've got email, you've got LinkedIn, you've got all these other places that you can go to develop relationships. You can go to communities, where people live. So it's definitely grown as a profession, sales, and the barrier to entry has always been low, but you're starting to see more and more folks make a career out of it. So sales was also something that was kind of taboo and, that's salesy. It has a negative connotation. And then when SaaS companies really started to blow up, you started to see the people who went into, investment banking that came out of Ivy League schools that knew they could make like $200,000 or $300,000 right out the gate going to investment banking, but working 20 hours a day, now going into SaaS sales because they can make the same thing and log way less hours and have a really great career. So all of a sudden it got really competitive, and even though you have more channels, they're getting just as saturated. And then when COVID hit, you had these 2 main channels, in person and online, and in person got completely wiped out. So now everybody is, basically swimming down the same path, and it makes it even for more saturation. So you have to find ways to adapt and pivot over time, and realize that there are no silver bullets in sales. I think like people are always trying to find these silver bullets, like, if you make these calls after this time or at this thing and do this, it's going to work for you. And maybe it will, maybe it won't, but you have to find your own ways to A/B test the things that are working. You have to figure out what's going to work for your variables. What is your industry that you're selling to? What segment you're selling to? The types of people that you're selling to? The roles, whatnot. People buy differently, across the board, and there's so many different variables with your product and your time zone and your country and whatever it is. So it's all about A/B testing. It's all about adapting and pivoting and not trying to fall into some trap where you read a book or a blog post and like, that's the definitive answer. Go just do that. It's a great place to start. But then what are the things you can do to pivot on that, iterate on that, to find the right thing for your business?
All right. So takeaway number 1 is expect to experiment like mad, because there's no one best way.
Yes.
So let's talk about SaaS sales. It's a topic near and dear to my heart, being a SaaS founder myself. So my company is Flowster, and we are now going after we're literally right in the middle of rolling out our new B2B first experiment, to be honest with you. And I think this will make for great conversation. So our target is the decision makers at brands that make consumer products that are sold on Amazon, because we offer them what's called an Amazon playbook. It's just a collection of standard operating procedures for running your Amazon Seller Central account. Very useful to a company that maybe doesn't know how to do all of that stuff.
Yep.
So walk me through, if you were my new VP of sales and we had this startup and I said, okay, hey, Max, this is our product. It's this thing. And, we're also in that business. So we created the product to scratch our own itch. So I know that it's a very beneficial product, and that's our target audience. We need to go get their attention. We need to go make our first 100 sales, 20 sales, whatever it is, so that we can then layer on paid advertising and SEO and all the other stuff on top of it. What would that strategy look like? What are some of the experiments that you would run?
I'm smiling because it's a very smooth move to get like a half hour free consulting for your own business.
Why do you think I'm a podcast host?
Exactly. No, it's genius. You're onto something here. No, it's a great question, and I like the way you laid it out. And so obviously, upselling your current base seems like a no brainer. So those would be your guinea pigs for it, or whatnot. Next thing is, I mean, there's got to be a database or a list you can scrape or something of all the sellers on Amazon, if that's your target market, right?
Easy
Those are the people.
Done that.
Yeah,
got the list.
So you got that. So are there common denominators that you can thread together with that list that'll allow you to lead score it? So, what is your low hanging fruit? What are the people on that list that are most likely to buy? Like, what do people have in common out of your current customers that you can mirror to create some kind of data lookalike to the list of people who aren't customers yet? And once you have that, how do you go about creating messaging to the different cohorts of that list? So you might be able to segment that and say, like, okay, well, we find that when a seller has this many reviews on their product pages, they're more likely to purchase our product than, if they don't. Okay, so now you have that list. Narrow it down based on the reviews. You tell me, are there certain metrics that are publicly available that you can decipher whether or not a company is a better fit for your product or not right off the bat?
Yeah, there's a lot of data available on Amazon. There's all sorts of tools that allow us to see estimates of the sales volume of a given product. There are tools that allow us to see estimates of the sales of all of the products for that brand and some of the trends, whether they've been going up or down or what have you. And we can also see the number of sellers that are for a given brand. So our message is, because typically a manufacturer didn't think about a direct-to-consumer strategy. They thought about selling into retail, and then some of those retailers put the product on Amazon. And then over the years, what's happened is all the Amazon's become this wild west sales channel for the brand that makes ABC widgets. And it's actually causing them a lot of problems. So our approach is saying to them, look, why don't you just fire all those folks and have your own Seller Central account? To which their response is, well, we don't really know how to do that. And then I say, well, we've got all the procedures that you would ever need to be able to do that. And if you could follow a checklist, then here, this is a solution for you. This is a very different customer. Like, I've sold millions of dollars worth of this to a very different customer segment. So for us, the very first guy I told about this was ironically a guest on my podcast, and he's running a brand that is buying brands. And as soon as I told him, he said, sign me up. And we've had calls. And so the very first customer loves it like crazy. Now we need to get customer 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, we've actually got about 5 by now, but you get the idea. It's still very, very new, but all that data is super available on Amazon. So my thinking is that probably newer brands who don't yet have a lot of traction on Amazon and might be struggling to run their own Seller Central account for a lack of knowledge could be one cohort. And then another cohort could be legacy brands that have been doing this for years, but all of their sales are handled by these third-party sellers, and they're not doing it themselves. And as a result, they're not making nearly as much money from the Amazon channel as they could be, because if they cut out all the middlemen, that's more income for their income statement.